I want you to stop. Right now. Whatever you're doing, stop. Because what I'm about to tell you in the next 85 minutes, it has the power to completely change the way you live your life, the way you love, the way you lead, the way you show up every single morning. And I'm not saying that to grab your attention. I'm saying it because I mean it, with everything I have. You picked up this audiobook for a reason. Maybe you're exhausted from blowing up at the people you love most. Maybe you're lying awake at 3 in the morning replaying something you said at work, something you can't take back. Maybe you've watched opportunities slip through your fingers because fear or anger or anxiety just took the wheel, and you didn't know how to stop it. I see you, and I need you to hear this. What's happening to you is not weakness. It is not a character flaw. It is not proof that you're broken. It is biology, and biology, thank God, can be retrained. By the time you finish listening to me today, you're going to understand yourself in a way you never have before. You're going to have tools, real, battle-tested, science-backed tools, that the most successful, most centered, most deeply alive people on this planet use every single day. Are you ready? Let's go. Your emotions are not your enemy, but they're not your boss either. Here's something nobody ever sat you down and explained. And, honestly, that's a crime. Your emotions are not your friend. Now wait. Before you slam pause, hear me out. Because I don't mean what you think I mean. I'm not saying your emotions are bad. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not saying you should stuff them down, white-knuckle through your feelings, or turn yourself into some kind of emotional robot. What I'm saying is this. Your emotions were designed for a world that no longer exists. They were built, literally hardwired into the ancient circuitry of your brain, to keep your ancestors alive when a saber-toothed tiger was stalking them through the grass. When survival meant reacting fast, when a split-second burst of panic or rage could be the difference between life and death. But here's the thing. You are not being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. You are sitting in a meeting. You are sending emails. You are having dinner with your family. You are lying in bed scrolling your phone. And yet, your emotional system is still firing like you're running for your life. And that is the problem. Every single day, you make decisions based on how you feel in the moment. You get triggered by a comment someone makes, and you fire back with something that slices right through a relationship that took years to build. You feel overwhelmed, and you quit on the goals you swore. You swore you would finally achieve this time. You get anxious before a big opportunity, and instead of rising to meet it, you shrink. You hide. You let it pass. You are being controlled by chemical reactions in your brain. And the tragedy? You don't even realize it's happening. But here's what I want you to hold on to. What the most extraordinary human beings alive today have figured out. The skill that separates the people who thrive from the people who just survive. They have learned to feel the emotion and then choose their response. Not suppress, not ignore, not numb, but choose. And that space, that tiny, powerful, miraculous space between what triggers you and how you respond, that is where your entire life is being decided. That is where your future lives. And we are going to spend the next 90 minutes walking you directly into that space and showing you how to own it. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The Hidden Cost of Emotional Reactivity. What if I told you that a 60-second emotional reaction has been slowly stealing your life? Your career, your relationships, your future, and you didn't even know the robbery was happening. Now build. Most people have absolutely no idea what their emotional reactions are costing them. Zero. None. They think it's normal to get triggered. They believe it's just human nature to lose control when things get hard. They tell themselves that their big emotions are signs of passion, proof that they care. They are wrong. And that comfortable lie is destroying their lives in ways they can't even begin to see clearly. Let me paint you a picture. A real one. Something that might feel a little too familiar. You're sitting in a meeting. Your boss and 3 colleagues are there. Someone challenges your idea, not even aggressively, just pushes back a little. And suddenly, Your heart starts hammering. Your face gets hot. There's this voice in your head, furious, wounded, screaming that it's not fair, that they don't understand you, that they're trying to make you look bad in front of everyone. And before you even realize what's happening, you've snapped back with an edge in your voice that makes the room go quiet in the worst way possible. The meeting ends. You walk out, and your professional reputation, which you spent years carefully building, just took a hit over 60 seconds of emotional reaction. Or maybe it's closer to home. You and your partner are arguing about something small. Honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. But they say something that hits that nerve. You know the one. And instead of staying calm, instead of working toward a solution like two adults who love each other, you escalate. You reach back into the past and drag up old wounds. You say things that are designed to hurt because you're hurting. 10 minutes later, you've transformed a minor disagreement into a 3-day Cold War over something that didn't even matter. All because you couldn't hold yourself for 60 seconds. Now here's the brutal truth I need you to sit with. Every single time you react emotionally instead of responding thoughtfully, you are training your brain to be weaker. You are carving neural pathways deeper into your skull, pathways that make it more likely you'll lose control next time. You are literally, physically rewiring yourself for failure, for conflict, for regret, and you're doing it voluntarily. The science on this is gut-wrenching. Every emotional blow-up triggers a flood of stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, that don't just disappear when the moment passes. They stay in your system for hours, sometimes days, quietly poisoning every decision you make, every conversation you have, every thought you think. One argument in the morning can wreck your entire afternoon. One stressful email can trigger a cascade of bad choices that ripples through your whole week. And over time, over years, chronic emotional reactivity literally reshapes your brain. People who regularly lose control have smaller prefrontal cortexes, the part of your brain responsible for thinking, planning, and making good decisions. The more you react, the less capable you physically become of not reacting. Let that sink in. And then think about the financial cost. Think about every deal you didn't close because you were too angry to listen carefully. Every opportunity you missed because anxiety had you paralyzed. Every partnership, every friendship, every promotion that quietly walked out the door while you were too busy reacting to notice. The relationship cost is even more heartbreaking. Every time you lose control with someone you love, you make a withdrawal from the emotional bank account of that relationship. You create distance. You plant resentment. Small seeds that grow and grow until one day you never saw coming, the account is empty. And the person is gone. And maybe the deepest cost of all, what this does to your relationship with yourself. Every time you lose control, you lose a little bit of self-respect. You know you're better than that. You know it. But in the moment, you felt completely powerless, like some outside force just grabbed the wheel. That feeling, that helplessness, erodes your confidence from the inside out, quietly, relentlessly. But here is the thing I need you to hold on to. This is not your destiny. Emotional reactivity is not baked into your DNA. It is not who you are. It is not some permanent, unchangeable part of you that you just have to live with. It is a habit, and every single habit, can be broken, can be replaced, can be rewired into something that actually serves you. The question is whether you're willing to do the work. And since you're still listening, I already know your answer. Chapter 2. Why your brain is wired to sabotage you. Your brain has a built-in alarm system that literally cannot tell the difference between a charging lion and a rude text message. And until you understand how it works, it will keep running your life. To really understand how to get control of your emotions, you first need to understand why your brain seems hell-bent on making you lose it. And here's the thing that blew my mind when I first learned this. Your emotional reactions aren't random. They're not crazy. They're not even irrational, not in the context they were designed for. They are the result of millions of years of evolution, fine-tuned to keep your ancestors breathing in a world full of real, immediate, physical dangers. The problem is, the world has changed completely. And your brain has not gotten the memo. Let me introduce you to the single most important structure in your emotional brain. It's called the amygdala, and I know that sounds like something you'd order at a fancy restaurant. But stay with me, because understanding this tiny, almond-shaped thing in the center of your brain is going to change everything. The amygdala is your personal alarm system. Its whole job, its only job, is to scan for threats and sound the alarm when it finds one. When your ancestor came face to face with a predator, the amygdala flooded their body with adrenaline, shut down rational thinking, and launched them into fight or flight mode in less than a heartbeat. Incredible engineering, life-saving technology. The problem? Your amygdala cannot tell the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and your boss sending you an angry Slack message. It cannot distinguish between physical danger and social rejection, between a fist coming at your face and a colleague rolling their eyes at your presentation. To your amygdala, humiliation and danger feel exactly the same, and the moment it decides there's a threat, whether that threat is real or completely in your head, it sounds the alarm. Hard, loud, full blast. This is called an amygdala hijack, and here's the part that should honestly make your jaw drop. When your amygdala fires, it happens in about 12 milliseconds. Your rational, thoughtful prefrontal cortex, the part of you that's wise and strategic and actually a fully evolved adult human being, takes at least 500 milliseconds to process the same information. Do you see the problem? You are reacting emotionally 40 times faster than you can think rationally. By the time you have a conscious thought about what just happened, your body is already in full red alert mode. Heart hammering, jaw clenched, hands maybe even shaking. The stress hormones are already flowing. The emotion got there first, every time. That's not weakness. That's just wiring. But here's what makes this even worse. Your amygdala learns from experience, except it's terrible at learning the right lessons. Every time you have a big emotional reaction to something, your amygdala files it away as confirmed evidence that this type of situation is genuinely dangerous. So it starts scanning harder for that type of threat. The list of things that trigger you keeps growing, and your threshold for reacting keeps getting lower. People who've been hurt in relationships become hypersensitive to the slightest sign of rejection, because their amygdala has learned that emotional pain is something to be feared and fought. People who've been publicly criticized become defensive over every tiny piece of feedback, because their brain decided early on that criticism equals danger. On top of all that, the modern world is running your amygdala at a constant low-level hum of alert. Social media designed to trigger outrage, news designed to create fear, work pressure, financial stress, traffic, relationship friction. Your emotional alarm system is getting pinged constantly, and when it's always on, it becomes hypersensitive. Things that wouldn't bother you on a good day start feeling catastrophic. You find yourself blowing up over tiny things and wondering why you're so on edge all the time. Then factor in sleep deprivation, and oh boy, when you're running on poor sleep, your amygdala becomes 40% more reactive to negative stimuli. 40%. That means you're nearly halfway more likely to lose control when you're tired. Same with poor nutrition, dehydration, no exercise. They all make it worse. Now, I know that all of this sounds discouraging, like your brain is working against you and there's nothing you can do. But here's the absolute game changer. The thing that made me feel genuinely hopeful when I first understood it. There is always a gap between the trigger and your response. It might be tiny, it might feel invisible, but it exists. And inside that gap, in that sliver of space, lives your power to choose. That is what we're building toward. That is the whole game. Let's talk about how it works. Chapter 3. The 4 levels of emotional mastery. Most people think emotional control is an on-off switch. Either you have it or you don't. But the truth is, there are 4 completely different levels. And most people are stuck on level 1 their whole lives. without even knowing it. Not all emotional control is created equal. Think of it like physical fitness. There's a massive difference between someone who can walk to the mailbox without losing their breath and someone who can run a marathon. They're both in shape compared to being bedridden, but they live in completely different bodies, different worlds. Emotional mastery works the same way. There are 4 distinct levels, and understanding where you are and where you could be might be one of the most clarifying things that happens to you today. Level 1. Unconscious reactivity. This is where most people spend their entire lives, and I say that with deep compassion, not judgment, because I've been there. Most of us have. At level 1, you are completely at the mercy of your emotions. Something happens, you feel something, and you act. Immediately. Automatically. No gap, no choice. Just stimulus and response, like a reflex. Someone says something that bothers you. You snap back before you've even processed what they said. You feel overwhelmed. You quit. Right then. No thought, just retreat. You feel excited. You make impulsive decisions that future you is going to regret deeply. People at level 1 genuinely believe that their feelings are facts, that their emotional reactions are justified and necessary, and that other people are responsible for making them feel the way they do. You hear it in the language, "You made me angry," or "I can't help how I feel," or "I was just being honest." No awareness of the gap, no awareness of choice, none. The devastating cost of level 1 is that you become completely unpredictable. Nobody knows which version of you is going to show up. That unpredictability destroys trust. It erodes relationships. It closes doors, quietly but permanently. Level 2. Conscious reactivity. This is the level that's somehow more frustrating than level 1. Because at level 2, you know you're angry. You know you're about to say something you'll regret. You can feel yourself about to cross the line, and you do it anyway, because in the heat of the moment, it feels justified. It feels earned. People at level 2 rationalize constantly. Yes, I lost my temper, but did you see what they did to me? Or, I know I shouldn't have sent that email, but honestly, they had it coming. They have awareness, but not control. They can see the gap, and they choose to blow past it every time. And the pattern that emerges is brutal. Emotional reaction. Guilt. I'll do better next time. Emotional reaction. Guilt. Again and again and again. A loop of self-disappointment that slowly, quietly, tears apart your self-respect. Sound familiar? Be honest with yourself. This is where a lot of genuinely smart, caring, well-intentioned people live. Level 3. Conscious response. And here is where everything starts to change. At level 3, you feel the emotion. You recognize it for exactly what it is. And then, instead of being driven by it, you choose your response. Deliberately, based on your values, based on who you actually want to be. You feel angry? You choose to speak calmly. You feel terrified. You choose to take the action anyway. You feel the pull of old patterns? You pause. You breathe. You decide. People at level 3 understand something that most people never grasp. Emotions are information, not instructions. Feeling angry doesn't mean you have to act angry. Feeling scared doesn't mean you're actually in danger. The feeling is a signal, data, that you can use to make a better decision. Not a command you have to obey. This level takes real, consistent practice. It takes self-awareness. It takes building up a toolkit of responses so that when the heat hits, you're not improvising. You already know what to do. We're going to give you that toolkit in detail. Level 4. Emotional alchemy. This is the highest level. And honestly, even talking about it gives me chills. At level 4, you don't just manage your emotions. You transform them. Anger becomes fuel for fierce, focused action. Fear becomes the electricity of excitement and courage. Disappointment becomes curiosity. What can I learn here? People at level 4 have worked so deeply on their inner world that they've restructured the way their minds interpret experience. Negative emotions don't disappear, but they rarely linger because they get converted so quickly into something useful. This isn't toxic positivity. This isn't pretending things don't hurt. This is the result of deliberate, patient, courageous inner work. And here's what I want you to understand about this journey from level 1 to level 4. You are not going to move through these levels in a straight line. You might be at level 3 at work and level 1 the second you walk into your childhood home for the holidays. That's okay. That's normal. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. Deliberate, consistent, compassionate progress. Most people never make it past level 2 because they've convinced themselves that emotional control is a gift, something some people are born with and others aren't. That belief is the cage. Emotional mastery is a skill. Like playing piano, like building muscle, like running distance. The genetics help a little, but anyone can get there with the right training. So let me ask you something real right now. Which level are you actually operating at? Not the level you wish you were at. Not the level you show the world. The real one. And then ask yourself, which level do you want to be at? Because once you make that decision, once you commit to that upgrade, everything begins to shift. Chapter 4. The Stop Method for Immediate Emotional Control. When you're in the middle of an emotional meltdown, heart racing, vision narrowing, every instinct screaming at you to say or do something you'll regret, you don't need philosophy. You need a system. And this 4-letter method could save your career, your marriage, and your sanity. Let me be real with you for a second. Most emotional control advice sounds great when you're calm, when you're sitting comfortably, feeling fine, thinking clearly. But the moment you're in the fire, the moment someone pushes your button and your brain lights up like a switchboard, most of that advice goes right out the window, because it requires you to think clearly when thinking clearly is precisely what you cannot do. When your amygdala is in control, your rational mind has left the building. You need something that works when you're not at your best. Something simple. Something almost automatic. That's the STOP method. 4 letters. 4 actions. A sequence you can deploy in real time, in the middle of an argument, before hitting send on a devastating email, right as you're about to say something you'll spend years regretting. Let's walk through it. S. Stop. The moment you feel that first rush, that heat in your chest, that quickening pulse, that tightening in your throat, you stop. Physically, completely. Typing an angry email, hands off the keyboard, right now, in the middle of an argument, mouth closed, full stop. About to make a decision you're not sure about? Step back, put space between you and the action. This physical stopping sends a direct signal to your nervous system. You are in charge. Not the emotion, you. Now here's the key that most people miss. You have to learn to recognize the warning signs before you're fully hijacked. Because your body always tips you off early. You just have to learn to listen. Heart rate ticking up, jaw or shoulders tightening, shallow breathing, heat rising in your face, a knot forming in your stomach. These are not random sensations. These are your early warning system. Learn to read them like an instrument panel, and you'll catch emotional reactions before they spiral. The stop has to be complete, not half-hearted, not, I'll slow down a little. Stop. Fully disengage. Yes, it might feel awkward in the moment, but awkward for 5 seconds beats devastating for 5 years. T. Take a breath. Not just any breath. A specific breathing pattern that acts like a biological reset button for your entire nervous system. Here's what you're going to do. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold it for a count of 4. And breathe out through your mouth, slowly, for a count of 6. That extended exhale is the magic. It directly activates your vagus nerve, the highway between your brain and your body's calming system. Within seconds, your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and recover side, starts firing. Stress hormones begin to ease up. Your heart rate starts coming down. Rational thought starts coming back online. This is called box breathing. Navy SEALs use it, emergency surgeons use it, elite athletes use it to lock in under pressure. And you can use it in a meeting room, in your car, in the kitchen mid-argument, right now if you need to. Do at least 3 rounds. More if you need it. Don't rush. The goal isn't to calm down just enough to function. It's to calm down enough to think clearly. That might take 30 seconds. It might take 5 minutes. Give yourself whatever you need. Oh, observe. Now that you've stopped and started to regulate, it's time to look at what's actually happening. Not the story your triggered brain is telling you. What is actually happening? And this is where it gets fascinating, because emotional reactions are almost always based on interpretations, not facts. Your colleague didn't respond to your idea with enthusiasm. Your brain decided they're undermining you, but maybe they're distracted by something going on at home. Maybe they're processing and need a moment. Your partner seems distant tonight. Your brain has decided they're pulling away from you, but maybe they had an awful day and they're just depleted. Your friend didn't text back? Your brain has decided they're upset with you, but maybe their phone died. Maybe they're in a meeting. Maybe they're just living their life. During the observe step, do this. Separate the facts from the story. What did the person actually say? What did they actually do? What concrete evidence do you have for the interpretation your brain jumped to? And this one is powerful. What are 3 other explanations that could also be true? Also observe what's happening inside you, not with judgment, with curiosity, like a scientist studying an interesting phenomenon. Something like, there's a tightening in my chest. A thought pattern around rejection is firing. Anger is arising. Just information, not evaluation, not shame. This kind of observation is like flipping the lights on in a dark room. Suddenly you can see clearly, and the monsters you imagined in the dark turn out to be furniture. P. Proceed. Now, only now, do you respond. But proceed doesn't mean rush forward. It means make a conscious choice about what kind of response actually serves the outcome you want and the person you're trying to be. Ask yourself, what does the person I'm becoming do right now? If the goal is to protect this relationship, what response moves toward that? If the goal is to solve this problem, what response is actually effective? Sometimes the best choice in the proceed step is not to respond at all. Not right now. You might realize you need more information before you can respond wisely. You might recognize you're still too activated to show up the way you want to. And that's okay. Choosing to wait is not weakness. It's wisdom in action. Other times, you proceed into a conversation, but from a completely different place than you would have started from 5 minutes ago. Instead of defending, you get curious. Instead of attacking, you seek to understand. Instead of proving you're right, you focus on connection. Practice the stop method until it becomes second nature. At first, you might only remember it after you've already reacted. That's okay. That still builds awareness. Over time, you'll catch yourself earlier and earlier, until eventually, you're deploying it at the very first twitch of emotional activation. You will never be perfect. Nobody is. The goal is simply to never let a temporary emotion make a permanent decision. And with stop in your toolkit, you have the power to make that happen. Chapter 5. Advanced Techniques for Emotional Regulation. Once you've got the basics locked down, it's time to go deeper, because the difference between someone who manages their emotions and someone who masters them isn't willpower. It's these 5 extraordinary mental tools. All right, you've got the stop method. You can catch yourself before you go full reaction mode. That is genuinely huge. Please take a moment to appreciate how powerful that alone is. But now we go further. Because emotional mastery isn't just about damage control. It's about optimization, using your inner world as a tool for peak performance, better decisions, and a life that feels deeply aligned. Here are the 5 advanced techniques that separate true emotional masters from people who just have decent impulse control. Technique 1. Cognitive reframing. Your emotions are not caused by what happens to you. Let that sit there for a moment. Your emotions are caused by what you think about what happens to you, by the interpretation your brain makes, often in milliseconds, about what an event means. And the beautiful, liberating, completely mind-bending truth is this: you can change the interpretation. And when you do, you change the emotion. Here's a real example. You're giving a presentation and you notice 3 people in the back are on their phones. Your brain's first take? I'm boring them. I'm failing. This is a disaster. And just like that, anxiety floods in. Your voice tightens. Your confidence drops. But what if you reframed? What if those people are looking things up because your ideas sparked something in them? What if they're taking notes? What if they're texting someone to come join the meeting because it's that good? Same people, same phones, completely different emotional experience. The practice is this: every time something triggers you, force yourself to generate at least 3 alternative interpretations. One more positive, one more negative, one completely neutral. This isn't about lying to yourself or forcing fake positivity. It's about recognizing that your first interpretation is almost never the only interpretation, and rarely the most accurate one. Your brain is a story-making machine. Cognitive reframing teaches you to be the editor of those stories instead of just the passive reader. Technique 2. Emotional labeling. This one sounds almost too simple. I promise you, it is extraordinarily powerful. Most people have a tiny emotional vocabulary. Good, bad, happy, sad, mad. Maybe stressed if they're feeling fancy. But here's the problem. You cannot regulate what you cannot precisely identify. It's like trying to fix a car engine when the only diagnostic tool you have is the word broken. The more specific you can name what you're feeling, the more control you have over it. Are you feeling frustrated or disappointed? Because those are different. They have different causes and different solutions. Are you feeling anxious or excited? Because physiologically they're almost identical. But the story you tell about them changes everything. Are you feeling angry or hurt? Because often anger is just hurt wearing armor. When you put a precise name on an emotion, something neurologically remarkable happens. It activates your prefrontal cortex and reduces activity in your amygdala. The simple act of labeling an emotion, accurately, specifically, makes it less overwhelming, more manageable, less in charge of you. Start expanding your emotional vocabulary. Keep a feeling journal. When something stirs inside you, get specific, get curious, get precise. It is one of the highest return emotional investments you can make. Technique 3. Somatic regulation. Here's what most people don't realize. Your body and your emotional state are on a two-way street. We usually think about it one way, that our feelings affect our body. Of course they do. You feel scared and your heart races. You feel embarrassed and your face flushes. But it also works the other direction. When you consciously change your body, your breathing, your posture, your muscle tension, your temperature, you directly shift your emotional state. Progressive muscle relaxation is one of the most underused, incredibly effective tools available to you. Start with your toes. Tense them hard for 5 seconds. Then release completely. Move up through your calves, your thighs, your core, your hands, your shoulders, your face. Tense and release. By the time you reach the top, you've systematically discharged the physical energy that was feeding the emotional reaction. Cold exposure is another one. Splashing cold water on your face or even a cold shower activates your vagus nerve directly. The shock of cold forces your nervous system to recalibrate, shifting from activated and reactive to calm and centered, sometimes in under a minute. And movement. Don't underestimate movement. When you're emotionally activated, your body is ready for action. If you don't give that energy somewhere to go, it stays trapped in your system, churning and feeding the emotion. Even 5 minutes of vigorous movement, a walk, some jumping jacks, shadowboxing, can dramatically shift your state. Your body is not just your transport. It is a profound instrument for emotional regulation. Learn to play it. Technique 4. Timeline reframing. When you're in the middle of an emotional storm, everything feels permanent. This is a crisis forever. This humiliation will define me. This relationship is over. This failure is final. None of that is true. But your brain doesn't know that right now. Timeline reframing is the practice of deliberately pulling your perspective back, zooming out, so the current situation gets put in its actual context. Ask yourself, how will I feel about this in 1 hour, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, 5 years? Very often, the thing that feels like a catastrophe right now will be a story you tell with a laugh in 5 years, or a lesson you reference with gratitude, or something you barely remember. And then try this. Imagine your future self, the wisest, most resilient version of you, 5 years from now, having navigated this exact kind of challenge successfully dozens of times. What would that person say to you right now? Get quiet, listen. That wisdom is already inside you. Timeline reframing is how you access it. Technique 5, energy management. This is the one that people always overlook until they burn out. Your capacity to regulate your emotions is not unlimited. It is a resource, and like all resources, it depletes. Every time you manage a tense interaction, resist a reactive impulse, or override an emotional pattern, that draws on a pool of mental energy. When that pool runs low, emotional control gets harder. Things that wouldn't normally affect you start to break through. This means you need to be strategic about when and where you spend your emotional regulation energy. Have your hardest conversations when you're most mentally fresh, not at the end of a brutal day when you're already running on fumes. Avoid certain draining people or situations when you're already depleted. Build genuine recovery into every day, not a quick scroll of social media, but real rest, real stillness. And take radical care of your physical baseline. Sleep, non-negotiable. Nutrition, it matters more than you think. Exercise, not optional. Hydration, simple but foundational. Taking care of your body is not separate from emotional mastery. It is emotional mastery. The two are inseparable. Don't try to implement all 5 of these at once. Choose one that resonates most deeply and start there. Build your competency, then add another. This is how you build sustainable mastery. Layer by layer, practice by practice, day by day. Chapter 6. Building emotional resilience for long-term success. Most people try to build resilience during the storm, but by then, it's too late. The people who stay unshakable when everything falls apart built that strength during the calm. And here's exactly how they did it. Here is one of the most important truths in this entire book. Controlling your emotions in the moment is only half the battle. The other half, the deeper, quieter, more powerful half, is building the kind of emotional foundation that makes crisis feel manageable. That makes adversity something you move through rather than something that stops you cold. That makes you not just strong enough to survive hard times, but genuinely stronger because of them. The word for that is anti-fragile. Not just resilient, anti-fragile. Growing in the fire. And here's the thing about building that kind of resilience. Most people do it completely backwards. They wait until they're drowning to learn to swim. They try to build coping skills in the middle of a crisis. They reach for tools they've never actually practiced at the moment they need them most. That doesn't work. Real emotional resilience is built during the calm, not during the storm. It's developed through consistent daily practice, the way physical fitness works. You don't get strong in the emergency. You get strong in the gym, day after day, so that when the emergency comes, you're already ready. Let's talk about the 6 pillars of that resilience. Pillar 1, baseline optimization. This is the daily maintenance of your mental, emotional, and physical state that determines how much pressure you can handle before reaching your breaking point. And I have to be direct with you here. Sleep is non-negotiable. I don't care how driven you are. I don't care how important your goals are. When you're sleep-deprived, your amygdala becomes hyperactive and your prefrontal cortex becomes sluggish. You are biologically less capable of emotional control. Full stop. The research is absolutely unambiguous. Fewer than 7 hours a night dramatically reduces your ability to regulate your emotions. And it's not just quantity, it's quality. Dark room, cool temperature, screens off at least an hour before bed. No caffeine after 2 in the afternoon. A consistent schedule that doesn't wildly shift on weekends. These aren't suggestions from a wellness magazine. They are the operating conditions for your emotional brain. And nutrition? Please don't skip this. Your brain runs on glucose. When your blood sugar is swinging up and down, your emotions swing with it. Protein with every meal. Omega-3s for brain health. Real food, not processed junk designed to spike and crash you. Staying genuinely hydrated throughout the day. Exercise. The research on this is undeniable. Regular movement increases serotonin, dopamine, and a compound called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which literally grows new brain cells and strengthens neural connections. It provides controlled stress that builds your capacity to handle uncontrolled stress. If you are not sleeping, moving, and eating in ways that support your brain, you are fighting emotional control with one hand tied behind your back. Pillar 2. Cognitive flexibility. Cognitive flexibility is your ability to hold multiple perspectives at once, generate creative solutions to difficult problems, and adapt your thinking when the world doesn't cooperate with your plan. People who are cognitively rigid, who get locked into one way of seeing a situation, amplify their emotional reactions. Because when reality doesn't match their rigid expectation, the only response they have is upset. People with genuine cognitive flexibility can find the angle that works. They stay curious when things go sideways. They adapt. They find the opportunity inside the obstacle. Build this muscle by deliberately exposing yourself to different perspectives. Read authors who challenge your worldview. Have real conversations with people whose lives look completely different from yours. Travel. Question your assumptions about how things work. And practice getting comfortable with uncertainty. Because so many emotional reactions are really just reactions to not knowing. When you learn to sit comfortably with ambiguity, you become dramatically more emotionally stable in the face of an unpredictable world. Pillar 3. Meaning-making. Here's a truth that psychology has confirmed again and again. People with a clear sense of purpose, people who know why they're here, what they stand for, what they're building, are dramatically more resilient in the face of adversity. When you can connect your current struggle to a larger story, when it means something, it becomes far easier to keep your head and make wise choices when things get brutal. This doesn't require some grand, world-saving mission. It can be as intimate and specific as, I want to be the kind of parent my kids can always count on. Or, I'm building something that will outlast me. Or, I want to live in a way that I'm proud of when I look back. Know your values. Know your why. Let that anchor you when emotions try to knock you sideways. Pillar 4. Social connection. You were not built for isolation. None of us were. Humans are profoundly social creatures, and isolation, whether physical or emotional, degrades your capacity to regulate emotions over time. You need relationships where you feel genuinely seen, supported, and challenged to be your best self. But, and this is crucial, not all relationships are created equal when it comes to resilience. Relationships with people who are constantly dramatic, chronically negative, or emotionally explosive will drain your resources and make your own emotional regulation harder. Be intentional. Spend more time with people who are growing, who are honest with you, who bring out strength in you rather than triggering your worst patterns. And invest in your close relationships with the same care you'd invest in anything else that matters deeply to you. Pillar 5. Strategic stress exposure. Your emotional muscles, like your physical muscles, grow through resistance.
If you only practice staying calm during easy situations, you will not have the reserves to stay calm during hard ones.
So choose your challenges deliberately. Put yourself in situations that are slightly outside your comfort zone regularly. Take on the project that scares you. Have the conversation you've been avoiding. Set goals that require you to become more than you currently are. cold exposure, public speaking, challenging fitness goals, difficult but meaningful conversations. These are all forms of deliberate emotional strength training. You're building capacity so that when life sends something you didn't choose, you're already strong enough to carry it. Pillar 6. Recovery and restoration. This is the one that high achievers most often resist, and it is the one that ultimately determines how long they can maintain peak performance. You cannot keep pouring from an empty cup. Your emotional regulation system requires genuine, intentional recovery, daily stillness, even 5 to 10 minutes of meditation or quiet reflection, weekly time in nature without technology, protecting vacation time as truly sacred, periods of genuine disconnection from work, from screens, from performance. Recovery is not laziness. Recovery is not a reward you've earned. Recovery is a requirement for sustained excellence. Build it in. Protect it fiercely. Start now. Not when life calms down, because life doesn't calm down. You build your strength during the relative calm that already exists, so that when the storms hit, and they always hit, you are already standing. Chapter 7. The Neuroscience of Emotional Transformation. What if I told you that every time you choose to pause instead of react, you are physically rebuilding your brain? Not metaphorically, literally, at the cellular level. The neuroscience of emotional mastery is one of the most hopeful things I have ever learned, and I can't wait to share it with you. I want to give you something that will keep you going on the days when progress feels invisible. I want to give you the science. Because here's what most people don't realize. When you practice emotional control, when you use the stop method, when you do the breathing, when you choose response over reaction, you are not just making a better decision in that moment. You are reshaping the physical architecture of your brain. This is called neuroplasticity. And for most of human history, scientists believed it wasn't real. They thought your brain was fixed after childhood, hardwired, unchangeable. If you had certain emotional patterns, you were stuck with them forever. We now know that is completely, absolutely, scientifically false. Your brain is not fixed. It is constantly rewiring itself based on your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, and your habits. Every single day, for your entire life. When you consistently choose a thoughtful response over an emotional reaction, you are strengthening the neural pathways associated with self-control, and you are weakening the pathways associated with reactivity. Over time, what was once a struggle becomes effortless, because the wiring has changed. The most dramatic changes happen in the prefrontal cortex, your brain's executive center, responsible for planning, impulse control, wise decision-making, and emotional regulation. Brain imaging studies show that people who practice emotional control regularly have more gray matter in this area, more brain tissue dedicated to wisdom and self-mastery. Meanwhile, the amygdala, your brain's hair-trigger alarm system, actually shrinks in people who practice emotional regulation. You don't become emotionless. You become more accurate. Your threat detection system learns to stop sounding alarms over emails and meetings and minor social friction. The anterior cingulate cortex, the part of your brain that notices when you're emotionally activated and signals you to redirect, becomes stronger and better connected. The insula, which bridges your physical sensations and your emotional awareness, becomes more developed, which is why practiced people catch emotional reactions earlier. Even your brain chemistry transforms. Serotonin, the mood-stabilizing neurotransmitter, increases with regular emotional regulation practice. Dopamine becomes more stable. Your stress hormone cortisol, which is genuinely toxic to your brain and body in large, chronic doses, becomes much better regulated. Lower baseline levels. Faster recovery after stress. And here's one of the most extraordinary findings in all of neuroscience. Just 8 weeks of consistent mindfulness or emotional regulation practice creates measurable, visible changes in brain structure. 8 weeks, 2 months. You are not stuck. The biology moves when you work with it. The timeline varies person to person and practice to practice, but most people notice meaningful shifts in their emotional reactivity within 2 to 4 weeks of regular practice. Structural brain changes typically begin showing up within 8 to 12 weeks. Deep, lasting transformation of core emotional patterns? 6 months to 2 years of consistent work. Yes, that's a real commitment. But here's what makes it worth everything. Once these neural changes become established, they tend to be permanent. You're not fighting against yourself forever. You're not suppressing something that wants to come back. You are rewiring the baseline. The new patterns become your brain's default. The person who struggles to control their emotions becomes the person who naturally, automatically, effortlessly responds with wisdom and composure. That is not a dream. That is neuroscience. Keep doing the work. Your brain is keeping score in ways you can't see yet, and every single day, it is changing. Chapter 8. Mastering Emotional Control in High-Pressure Situations. Anyone can stay calm when life is easy. The real question is who you become when everything is on the line. The stakes are enormous, and every instinct is screaming at you to panic. That's when emotional mastery becomes the ultimate competitive advantage. High-pressure situations are the final exam of everything you've built. They don't care about your good intentions. They don't care how much you've read or how many podcasts you've listened to. In the heat of a real crisis, a career-defining moment, a relationship-rupturing confrontation, a decision with massive consequences, you discover who you actually are beneath the surface. And here's the truth that separates elite performers from everyone else. Pressure is not external. Pressure is internal. The situation itself is neutral. It becomes pressurized inside your mind based on how you frame it, what story you tell about it, and what emotional response you choose. Two people can face the exact same high-stakes moment. One crumbles, one rises. The difference is almost never talent or luck. It's preparation. Specifically, emotional preparation.
Let's talk about the 6 keys that make the difference.
Key 1. Control the narrative. The story you tell yourself about a pressure situation determines your emotional response to it, which determines your performance in it. Instead of, "This is terrible. Everything is falling apart. I can't handle this." Try, "This is challenging. I have the skills to handle this. This is exactly what I've been preparing for." Elite athletes, military operators, and emergency responders all use this kind of deliberate self-talk. Not to pretend danger isn't real, but to frame the situation in a way that enhances their performance rather than undermining it. You get to choose your narrative. Choose one that supports you. Key 2. Physiological preparation. Your nervous system needs to be trained to handle intense activation without shutting down rational thought. Cold exposure, deliberate, voluntary cold, activates the same stress response systems as a high-pressure situation, but in a controlled setting where you can practice staying calm. Your breathing, your mindset, your muscle relaxation, all of it practiced against the controlled discomfort of cold. These skills transfer directly to real high-pressure moments. High-intensity exercise does the same thing. Learning to maintain mental discipline while your body is under physical stress is the same skill as maintaining mental discipline when your career or relationship is under stress. Train the nervous system before you need it. Key 3. Attention management. Under pressure, your mind scatters. It starts running through every possible catastrophe, every watching eye, every consequence of failure. That scattered attention makes peak performance impossible. The skill is laser focus, the ability to concentrate all of your mental energy on the single most important action you need to take right now. Not the next 10 steps, not the opinions of everyone in the room, just this moment, just this task. Build this during low-pressure periods. 10 minutes of single-pointed focus every day, gently returning your attention every time it wanders. The muscle you build during calm translates directly to performance under fire. Key 4. Emotional granularity. Under pressure, most people experience a generic wave of stress or anxiety without differentiating what they're actually feeling. But are you anxious, worried about a specific outcome? Or are you excited, energized by the challenge? Physiologically, those two feelings are remarkably similar, but your interpretation of them changes everything. Many elite performers have learned to relabel pre-performance anxiety as excitement and channel that energy as fuel, rather than experiencing it as fear. The body's activation is the same. The story changes the outcome. Get specific, get granular. Name what you're actually feeling, and you get to choose what it means. Key 5. Process over outcome. The single biggest performance killer under pressure is obsessing over the result instead of focusing on execution. You cannot directly control the outcome. The outcome depends partly on factors beyond your influence. What you can control is your effort, your attention, your technique, and your attitude in this moment. Surgeons who perform best don't spend surgery thinking about whether the patient will survive. They focus on making each incision precisely. Pilots don't spend takeoffs imagining crashes. They execute their checklists. What's your checklist? What's the process you trust? Focus there, trust the process, and let the outcome take care of itself. Key 6. Recovery and reflection. After high-pressure situations, win or lose, you need deliberate recovery. Breathe, move. Let your nervous system return to baseline before making additional decisions or engaging in more stressful interactions. And then, when you've recovered, reflect. With curiosity, not judgment. What worked? What would you do differently? What did this reveal about your strengths and your growing edges? This is how pressure situations become training. How the challenges that could break you instead become the evidence that you can handle anything. Chapter 9. Transforming negative emotions into fuel for success. What if anger, fear, sadness, and frustration weren't obstacles standing between you and success, but the fuel that could propel you to it? What if the very emotions you've been trying to escape are actually the most powerful energy source you have? Most people treat negative emotions like hazardous waste, something to be disposed of, suppressed, outrun. But here's what that approach costs you: enormous energy. Negative emotions contain incredible amounts of raw power. The question is never whether to feel them. The question is whether to waste them or transform them. Let's talk about some of the most common ones. Anger. Most people either explode with it and destroy everything in the blast radius, or they swallow it and let it rot into resentment. Both approaches waste its power completely. Anger is your psyche's emergency response to perceived injustice or violation. It floods you with energy and focus. That energy, directed at other people, is destructive, but directed at problems, at obstacles, at goals, it becomes rocket fuel. Some of history's most extraordinary achievements were built on transformed anger. Entrepreneurs who built empires because they were furious that a problem wasn't being solved. Athletes who dominated because they were done being underestimated. Activists who changed the world because they refused to accept injustice. The emotion that destroys most people became the driving force for breakthrough. Fear, the emotion most people spend their entire lives running from, is actually your internal compass pointing directly at what matters most to you. You only fear losing things that are genuinely valuable. You only fear failing at things that are genuinely important. The goal is not to eliminate fear. The goal is to dance with it. Feel it fully, extract the information it's giving you, and then take action anyway. That's what courage actually is. Not the absence of fear, but intelligent motion in its presence. And here's a filter for your goals. If something doesn't scare you even a little, it's probably not big enough to be worth pursuing. Frustration, the most common emotion in modern life, and the most commonly wasted, is your psyche's signal that you care deeply about progress, and you're being blocked from it. That's not a problem. That's information. Transform frustration by getting fascinated instead of defeated. Instead of being stopped by the obstacle, get interested in it. What is it teaching you? What new strategy does it demand? What capability do you need to develop? Frustration isn't a sign to quit. It's a sign to evolve. Anxiety, reframed correctly, is advance reconnaissance. It's your brain trying to prepare you for something that matters. Instead of drowning in vague dread, use anxiety as a strategic planning tool. What specifically am I worried about? What can I do to prepare? What is within my control? The moment anxiety becomes action, it transforms. Worry that leads nowhere is torture. Worry that leads to preparation is wisdom. And guilt and shame, the most painful ones, contain, believe it or not, some of the most important guidance your inner self can offer. Guilt tells you when you've acted out of alignment with your values. Shame tells you when your behavior has betrayed who you want to be. These aren't enemies. They're signals. Course corrections from the deepest part of you. The right response isn't to run from them. It's to listen. And then change. Here is the practice for all of it. Instead of asking, how do I make this feeling go away? Ask, what is this feeling trying to tell me? And then ask, what action can I take that honors the message while moving me forward? This is emotional alchemy. This is the transformation of lead into gold, of pain into power. And it is one of the most important skills a human being can develop. Chapter 10. Building Unshakable Confidence Through Emotional Mastery. Real confidence isn't the absence of doubt. It's not the certainty that you'll always win. It's something far deeper. And the path to it might be the opposite of everything you've been told. Let me tell you what real confidence is not. It is not the absence of fear. It is not the belief that you'll never fail. It is not feeling certain about outcomes you can't control. And it is absolutely not something you can fake, perform, or think your way into. Real confidence, the unshakable kind, is the quiet, deep, bone-level certainty that you can handle whatever comes. Not that nothing bad will happen. Not that you'll always get it right. Not that life will cooperate with your plans. But that you, with your skills, your resilience, your emotional tools, your values, can meet whatever life brings and come through it. That kind of confidence can only be built one way: evidence. Real evidence. Accumulated through real action, real challenge, real recovery. Which is why the path to it looks completely backwards from what most people expect. Most people wait until they feel confident before they take action. But confidence doesn't come before action. It comes from action. You take the step while you're still uncertain. You handle the situation better than you thought you would. Your brain updates its estimate of your capabilities, and your confidence grows. Then you take a bigger step, and the cycle continues. This is why emotional mastery is the foundation of unshakable confidence. Because when you know you can manage your inner state regardless of what's happening outside, you can move through the world with a courage and steadiness that builds on itself. The 6 pillars of this confidence. Emotional self-reliance. Your inner state is not dependent on other people's approval or life's cooperation. You generate the emotional state you need from within. Competence, genuine skill, real ability. Not just believe in yourself, but actual evidence that you are capable. Built through doing hard things. Integrity alignment. When your values, your words, and your actions are in sync, you develop an inner strength that makes you nearly unshakable. The moment they fall out of alignment, the shakiness starts. Keep them aligned. Resilience. Your track record of getting back up. Every time you recover from a setback and emerge better, you add a row to the evidence that you are someone who doesn't stay down. Future orientation. Making decisions based on who you're becoming, not who you currently are. The confident version of you would do X, grow into it. Contribution focus. When you shift from how do I look to how can I help, self-consciousness dissolves and authentic confidence takes its place. Unshakable confidence is not arrogance. It's not superiority. It's accuracy, an accurate assessment of your capabilities combined with realistic optimism about your capacity to grow. Build the evidence. Show yourself who you are, and the confidence will follow. Chapter 11. The art of strategic non-reaction in relationships. You can master your emotions everywhere else in your life, at work, under pressure, in public, and then lose it completely with the person you love most. Because relationships are where our deepest triggers live. And strategic non-reaction is the skill that changes everything. Here's a truth I want you to sit with. The people who love you most are the people most likely to see you at your worst. When you're tired, depleted, and stripped of your defenses, that's when the people at home get the version of you that nobody else sees. And if that version is reactively emotional, if that version lashes out and shuts down and escalates, the people you love most pay the price. Relationships are where emotional mastery matters most, and where most of us have the most work to do. Most relationship conflicts, if you look honestly at them, are not really about the surface issue. They're about underlying emotional patterns, unmet needs, and unexamined triggers that both people are carrying, often from long before this relationship even existed. When you learn to not react emotionally, when you create space, when you choose response over reaction, you can actually see what's really happening and address it with wisdom instead of warfare. A few principles that will transform your closest relationships. Every interaction is a choice between connection and control. When you react emotionally, you're choosing control, to be right, to defend yourself, to win the argument. When you choose non-reaction, you're choosing connection, the relationship over the point. Which one actually matters to you? You are only responsible for your 50%. You cannot control what the other person says or does or feels. You have complete control over your own response. Stop spending your energy trying to manage their 50% and pour all of that energy into managing yours. This shift alone changes the entire dynamic. De-escalate instead of match. When someone raises their voice, the instinct is to raise yours. When someone gets critical, the instinct is to get defensive. Resist that instinct. Speak more quietly when they speak loudly. Get more curious when they get critical. Give space when they're overwhelmed. It breaks the pattern. It creates room for something different. Separate the person from the behavior. When someone you love does something hurtful, the mind wants to globalize it. They are not just being difficult right now. They are difficult. A difficult person. Push back against that. Their behavior is information about their current state, their stress level, their pain, their overwhelm. It's not a final verdict on their character. Master the pause. In heated moments, there is enormous pressure to respond immediately. Resist it. Say, "Give me a moment." Say, "Let me think about that." Breathe 3 times. The pause is not weakness. The pause is where your power lives. And the most advanced skill of all, emotional judo. When someone comes at you with anger or criticism, instead of absorbing the blow or fighting back, you redirect. You acknowledge what they're feeling and move toward solution. It takes tremendous strength. And it ends conflicts faster than anything else I've ever seen. You cannot control whether other people choose to be reactive. You can only control whether you join them. When you consistently choose non-reaction in your relationships, you become a source of safety and stability. A place people come to when the world feels hard, because they know that with you, things won't get worse. That is one of the most beautiful things a human being can offer another human being. Chapter 12. Emotional Leadership and Influence. Leadership has almost nothing to do with your title, your credentials, or even your expertise. It has everything to do with how you make people feel, and that is entirely determined by your emotional mastery. Here's what nobody teaches in business school. The most powerful thing you can do as a leader, as a parent, as a manager, as a partner, as a human being who influences other human beings, is model emotional mastery. Not preach it, not demand it from others. Model it. Because people do not learn from what you tell them. They learn from what you show them, especially when things get hard. When you stay calm under pressure, everyone around you receives an unspoken permission slip to be calm. When you respond to setbacks with problem-solving curiosity instead of panic or blame, You teach everyone watching that this is how capable people handle difficulty. When you treat your own mistakes with honest accountability instead of defensive denial, you create a culture where people can be honest about theirs. Every emotional choice you make as a leader ripples outward. Your team mirrors your patterns. Your children absorb your patterns. Your organization reflects your emotional culture from the top down. This means the most important leadership work you will ever do is internal. The practical skills of emotional leadership, psychological safety. When people feel they can admit mistakes, ask questions, and show uncertainty without being judged or punished, they become more honest, more innovative, and more committed. You create that safety through your response to imperfection, react with blame, and people learn to hide. Respond with curiosity and forward focus, and people learn to be brave. Emotional contagion management. Emotions are literally contagious. Through mirror neurons, your emotional state influences everyone in your presence, often before a word is spoken. Before you walk into an important room, choose the emotional state you want to bring. Embody it. You'll be amazed at what shifts. Strategic authenticity. This is not the same as emotional venting. Strategic authenticity means being genuine while being intentional. Sometimes you share vulnerability to build trust. Sometimes you project confidence to provide stability. The key is matching your expression to what the moment needs, while remaining anchored to your true values. Empathy without absorption. You can deeply understand what someone is going through without being swept away by it. You can be genuinely compassionate without losing your own center. In fact, you can only sustain compassion when you maintain that center. Boundaries are not walls. They are what make sustained caring possible. The goal of emotional leadership is creating an upward spiral, where your mastery inspires others to develop theirs, which creates a culture of emotional intelligence that elevates everyone's performance and humanity. You're not just managing people, you're raising the collective emotional ceiling of everyone you influence. That is extraordinary work, and it starts with the work you're doing right now. Chapter 13. Creating your personal emotional operating system. Information without implementation is just entertainment. So let's build the actual system, the daily structure that turns everything you've learned from something you know into something you live. Here's the uncomfortable truth about self-development. Most people consume information, feel inspired for a while, and then drift back to their old patterns. Not because they don't care, not because the information wasn't good, because they never built a system to make the new behavior automatic. Your emotional operating system is that system. It's the daily architecture, the practices, the environmental designs, the check-ins and recovery routines that make emotional mastery your default. Not something you have to remember to do, the way you just are. Here's how to build yours. Daily emotional fitness routine, 5 to 10 minutes, every single day, no exceptions. This is your minimum viable practice. Include some form of mindfulness. Even 5 minutes of just sitting and observing your thoughts without engaging them. Include breathing exercises. Even 3 rounds of box breathing. Include brief reflection. A few minutes of journaling or thinking about your emotional patterns, what triggered you, what you'd do differently. Consistency over intensity. Showing up imperfectly every day beats a perfect session once a week. Environmental design. Your surroundings are shaping your emotional state constantly, whether you're aware of it or not. Audit what you're consuming. What's in your feed? What's the tone of your news? What's the emotional energy of the spaces you spend time in? Who are you around most? Make deliberate changes. Create conditions that support the emotional state you want. Trigger mapping. Keep a journal for 2 weeks. Every time you have a significant emotional reaction, note it. What triggered it? What did you feel? What did you do? What do you wish you had done? After 2 weeks, patterns will emerge clearly. Use them to create specific, pre-planned response strategies for your most common triggers. you should never be surprised by your own patterns. Recovery protocols. Have these built before you need them. Your immediate tools: breathing, a short walk. Your medium-term tools: movement, journaling, a conversation with someone you trust. Your longer-term restoration: real rest, time in nature, genuine disconnection from performance. Know your recovery toolkit. Practice it. Deploy it. Progress tracking. You need objective evidence that you're improving, because your feelings about your progress will often be inaccurate. Keep it simple. A daily self-rating of your emotional control from 1 to 10, or a brief log of notable wins and notable setbacks. Over weeks and months, the trend line will tell you the truth. Regular review and adaptation. Every month or so, look at what's working and what's not. Your life will change. Your stressors, your relationships, your circumstances. Your emotional operating system needs to evolve with you. Stay curious, stay adaptive, and finally, integrate this into your whole life. Your emotional practices cannot be a separate box labeled self-improvement. They need to be woven into how you make decisions, how you manage your time, how you approach your relationships, how you pursue your goals. When your emotions are part of the system works. When they're separate, they will always eventually override the system. Chapter 14. Advanced Applications in High-Stakes Environments. In the moments that define your life, the crisis, the confrontation, the performance that everything has been building toward, who do you want to be? Because those moments don't wait for you to be ready. They just arrive, and you respond with whatever you've built. Every skill you've developed comes to its real test in high-stakes environments. Crisis situations, career-defining negotiations, performances under scrutiny, interactions with extremely difficult people. In these moments, when the pressure is maximum and the consequences are real, emotional mastery becomes the ultimate competitive advantage. Crisis management. When something goes seriously wrong, people look to someone to be steady. Panic is contagious, but so is calm competence. The leader who can think clearly while others are being hijacked by their amygdala becomes the most valuable person in the room, the fixed point around which others orient themselves. But you cannot develop crisis emotional management during a crisis. You develop it during the calm, through visualization, through intentional stress exposure, through practicing composure under smaller pressures until it becomes automatic. The crisis reveals what you built. Build accordingly. High-pressure negotiations. The moment you become emotionally attached to winning, to proving your point, to not looking weak, you become predictable and manipulable. The negotiator who can remain emotionally centered, who cares more about the process than the outcome, who is curious rather than combative, has a significant strategic advantage that most people never develop. Separate your ego from the outcome. Stay committed to your values. Remain genuinely curious about the other person's perspective. These aren't just nice qualities. They are strategic advantages. Performance under scrutiny. When you're being evaluated, watched, or judged, performance anxiety can undermine even excellent preparation. The antidote is shifting your focus from being perceived to being useful. Not, how do I look, but how can I serve this audience? That single shift moves enormous amounts of attention away from self-consciousness and toward genuine presence. Difficult people. Every environment has them. The manipulative, the aggressive, the emotionally volatile. The key is not taking their behavior personally, because it almost never is personal. Their emotional state is about them, their history, their stress, their patterns. When you can see their behavior as information rather than attack, you can respond strategically and stay in your own center. Managing success and failure. Both extremes trigger emotional responses that lead to bad decisions. Success breeds complacency and arrogance. Failure breeds despair and identity crisis. Emotional mastery means holding both lightly, understanding that neither is permanent and neither defines you. Both are data. Extract the lesson. Keep moving. And the ultimate high-stakes environment is the one inside you, in moments of extreme challenge, loss, or transition, when the world you counted on seems to be dismantling itself. In those moments, you become your own source of stability. The external chaos cannot shake you because you have built something unshakable inside. That is the promise, and it is real. Chapter 15. The Compound Effect of Emotional Mastery. Every small choice to respond instead of react seems insignificant in the moment, but like compound interest, those choices accumulate into something extraordinary. And the person you become over years of this practice is almost unrecognizable from the person you were when you started. I want to leave you with something that I hope you carry for the rest of your life. Emotional mastery works like compound interest. Every single time you choose response over reaction, every pause, every breath, every moment you catch yourself and choose differently, it seems small, unremarkable. Sometimes it even feels like nothing changed. But those choices accumulate, silently, powerfully, exponentially. Over weeks, you start noticing the patterns. Over months, the reactions that used to flatten you barely register. Over years, you look back and can barely recognize who you were before you started this work. The compound effects are staggering. Relational trust, built deposit by deposit, every time you stay calm when others expected you to blow. Eventually, you have a depth of trust in your key relationships that creates a safety net nothing can fully break. Reputation and influence. People remember how you made them feel far more than what you accomplished. The person who brings stability to chaos, who can be counted on when stakes are highest. That reputation opens doors that achievement alone never could. Decision quality. When your choices aren't being hijacked by emotional reactivity, you make better decisions across every domain of your life. Relationships, career, finance, health. Better decisions, compounded over decades, create dramatically better outcomes. Health and longevity. Chronic emotional reactivity creates chronic stress, which causes real, measurable damage to your body. Mastering your emotions isn't just good for your career and relationships. It may genuinely add years to your life. Research bears this out clearly. Learning acceleration. When you're not constantly managing the fallout from emotional reactions, you free up enormous mental and emotional energy for growth. And when you can receive feedback and learn from failure without being devastated by it, you become an accelerated learner in a way that compounds dramatically. Inner peace. Perhaps the most underrated of all the compound effects. A deepening, stabilizing sense of quiet confidence. Not the fragile confidence that depends on things going well. The real kind. That comes from knowing you can handle whatever comes. That no matter what happens, you will not be destroyed by it. And finally, the most extraordinary outcome of all. You become anti-fragile. Not just resilient, not just bouncing back. Anti-fragile. Growing because of the pressure. Getting stronger from the difficulty. Becoming more capable through the challenge. When you reach this level, you stop fearing hard times because you have learned, through direct, personal, repeated experience, that hard times are where you do your best growing. I want you to hear this as clearly as I can say it. You are not your old patterns. You are not your past reactions. You are not the person who snapped or shut down or ran away or said the thing they'll never take back. You are a human being with a brain that is plastic, changeable, all the way until your last breath. And every single day, every single moment, every single choice to pause instead of react is an investment. In your brain, in your relationships, in your reputation, in your future, in the person you are becoming. The time to start is now. Not when life settles down, not when you feel ready, not when the conditions are perfect. Now, this moment, this breath. Because every day you wait is a day of compound interest you don't collect, and the life waiting on the other side of this work is extraordinary. You have everything you need. Now go build it. Closing. Thank you for spending this time with me. What you've done today, the act of showing up, of choosing to invest in your inner world, that matters. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let the busyness of life convince you that this work is secondary. This work is the foundation of everything else. Go slowly. Go consistently. Be patient with yourself when you fall back into old patterns. And you will sometimes, because you're human, and so am I. But keep coming back. Keep practicing. Keep choosing the pause over the reaction, the response over the impulse, the person you're becoming over the person you've been. The compound interest of that choice, over a life well lived, is immeasurable. I believe in you. Now go prove it to yourself.